Hello everyone, I'm Sitimpurat Ilse and I'm with Venus Ramos and we are here to present to you about socio-cultural phenomenon influencing education. First, what is multiculturalism? Multiculturalism is a systematic and comprehensive response to cultural and ethnic diversity with educational, linguistic, economic, and social components and specific institutions mechanism. In other words, multiculturalism is the phenomenon of multiple groups of cultures existing within one society, largely due to the arrival of immigrants. The term is often used to describe societies, especially nations, which have many distinct cultural groups resulting from immigration. The presence of many cultural groups in a society can lead to anxiety about the stability of national identity, but it can also lead to cultural exchanges that can bring benefits to the cultural groups. When different cultural groups collaborate with each other, they can accomplish many great works in literature, arts, philosophy, technology, fashion, and all other human endeavors that celebrate the richness of the talents and intelligence of humanity. We also have the three interrelated reference. When we say demographic descriptive, it refers to the existence of linguistically, culturally, and ethnically diverse segments in the population of a society or state. Next is the ideological narrative. It refers to the management and organization of governmental responses to ethnic diversity. Next is pragmatic political. It refers to the specific policies developed to respond to and manage ethnic diversity. We also have what we call multicultural education. According to Banks and Banks 1995, it defines multicultural education as a field of study and an emerging discipline whose major aim is to create equal educational opportunities from diverse racial, ethnic, social class, and culture. While to James Banks 2001, the primary goal of multicultural education is to transform the school so that male and female students, exceptional students, and students from diverse cultural, social class, racial, and ethnic groups experience an equal opportunity to learn. And we also have the other goals of multicultural education. First is to help all students acquire knowledge, attitudes, and skills needed to function effectively in pluralistic democratic society and to interact, negotiate, and communicate with peoples from diverse groups in order to create a civic and moral community that works for the common good. Next is to help students acquire the knowledge and commitments needed to make reflective decisions and to take personal, social, civic actions to promote democracy and democratic living. Third is related goal is to help all students develop more positive attitudes towards different racial, ethnic, cultural, and religious groups. We have the four approaches in accomplishing multicultural education. First is the contributions approach. It is the ethnic heroes and holidays are included in the curriculum. Second is the additive approach. It is a unit or course is incorporated, for example, a unit on women in history, but no substantial change is made to the curriculum as a whole. Third is transformation approach. The entire Eurocentric nature of the curriculum is changed. Students are taught to view events and issues from diverse ethnic and cultural perspectives. Fourth is the social action approach. It goes beyond the transformation approach. Students not only view issues from multiple perspectives, but also become directly involved in solving related problems rather than political passivity, the typical byproduct of many curricular programs. This approach promotes decision-making and social actions in order to achieve multicultural goals and a more vibrant democracy. We also have ideals underpinning multicultural education. Every student must have an equal opportunity to achieve his or her full potential. Next, every student must be prepared to competently participate in an increasingly intercultural society. Teachers must be prepared to effectively facilitate learning for every individual student, no matter how culturally similar or different from themselves. Education must become fully student-centered and inclusive of the voices and experiences of the student. And also, educators' activities and others must take a more active role in re-examining all educational practices and how they affect the learning of all students, testing methods, teaching approaches, evaluation and assessment, school psychology, and counseling. Dimensions of multicultural educations. There are 5 dimensions of multicultural education according to Banks 1997. First is content integration. It deals with the extent to which teachers use examples and content from a variety of culture and groups to illustrate key concepts, generalizations, and issues within their subjects, area, or disciplines. Second, knowledge construction process. It describes how teachers help students understand, investigate, and determine how the biases, frames of reference, and perspectives with the discipline influence the ways in which knowledge is constructed within it. Third is the prejudice reduction. It describes lessons and activities used by teachers to help students develop positive attitudes toward different racial, ethnic, and cultural groups. Lessons, units, and teaching materials that include content about different racial and ethnic groups can help students develop more positive intergroup attitudes if certain conditions exist in the teaching situation. These conditions include positive images of the ethnic groups in the materials and the use of the multi-ethnic materials in a consistent and sequential way. Fourth is the equity pedagogy. Exists when teachers modify their teaching in ways that will facilitate the academic achievement of students from diverse racial, cultural, and social class groups. 5 is empowering school culture and social structure. This is created when the culture and organization of the school are transformed in ways that enable students from diverse racial, ethnic, and gender groups to experience equality and equal status. So what is culturally responsive teaching? Culturally responsive teaching acknowledges cultural diversity in classrooms and accommodates this diversity in instructions by first recognizing and accepting students' diversity. It communicates that all students are welcome and valued as human beings. Second, building on students' cultural backgrounds. Culturally responsive teaching communicates positive images about the students' home cultures. And third, being responsive to different learning styles. Culturally responsive teaching builds on students' strengths and uses this to help students learn. Culturally responsive instruction covers areas related to first, inclusive content in the curriculum that reflects the diversity of society. Second, students' prior knowledge, including their culture and language. And lastly, the idea that culture is central to student learning because there is strong evidence that cultural practices thinking process. Culturally responsive teaching encompasses elements such as communication of high expectations, active teaching methods that promote student engagement, teacher as facilitator, positive perspectives on parents and families of culturally and linguistically diverse students, cultural sensitivity, reshaping the curriculum so that it is culturally responsive to the background of students, culturally appropriate social situations for learning, and culturally valued knowledge in curriculum content, small group instruction, and academically related discourse. And lastly, small group instruction and academically related discourse. Effective teachers accept and value their students as human beings. This is true for all students, but it is particularly important for cultural and ethnic minorities who may feel some form of alienation from school. This is amplified when teachers communicate that all students can learn and are expected to do so. There are cultural changes that influence the behaviors and ways of life of people in the different countries throughout the world, such as multiculturalisms and student subcultures. Teachers are in the best position to understand and recognize that the students have diverse cultural backgrounds and can adapt their instruction to meet these diverse learning needs.
Hello, good day everyone. So, I am Venus L. Ramos. So, the next topic that we are going to discuss is the globalization. So, kanina natapos na natin yung multiculturalism. So, ngayon is i-discuss ko naman ngayon kung ano ang globalization. So, first, what is globalization? So, it refers to the increasing interconnectedness and governance of activities and forms of life among diverse culture throughout the world. So, when we say globalization, it also the numerous reduction of costs of transportation and communication, and the breaking down of artificial barriers to the flows of goods, services, capital, and knowledge. So, like, parang ito yung trading system natin sa ibang bansa. Globalization. So, next is the globalization as a theory. So, it seeks to explain the integration of economies and societies around the world as they knit together by travel, language, values, and ideas, trade, labor, and financial flows, communication, and technology. So, it also addresses the political interconnectedness of nations via global governance arrangement and expanding culture exchange via the internet, mass media, travel, and etc. So, as the process of globalization affects all countries, some more favorably than others in terms of economic growth, national sovereignty, and a cultural identity. So, sa atin, it is the economic growth. Next is the education system, the core of the globalization process. So, global development as a direction of globalization, education has become a inseparable tool. So, with the ever-increasing globalization, interconnected of people of the world, education finds itself at the very center of it. And Rene emphasizes the educational policy has become an ever more important part of economic, trade, labor, and social policy in Western countries. One concrete global development is the development of the mega universities network, and virtual universities that can be offer competitive training programs for students recruited from all over the world. So, next is the global education and globalization. So, first, globalization demands an education that develops higher order cognitive and interpersonal skills required for problem finding, problem solving, articulating arguments, and deploying verifiable facts or artifacts. So, motivated by economic forces and driven by digital technologies and globalizations links individuals and institutions across the world with interconnections. So, next is the global education. It aims to extend students' awareness of the world in which they live by opening to the diverse heritage of human thoughts and action and creativity. So, next, we are going to aspects of globalization. So, isa-isahin natin to. So, first, the industrial globalization. So, when we say industrial globalization, is the transnationalization refers to the rise and expansion of multinational and transnational enterprises. Next is the financial globalization. It refers to the emergence of worldwide financial markets and better access to external financing for corporate, national, and subnational borrowers. So next is the political globalization. So it refers to the spread of political spheres of interest to the regions and countries outside the neighborhood of political, state and either not state or non-state. So actors and the potential formation of global citizens movement. So next is the information globalization. So it refers to the increase in information flows between geographically remote locations. And next is the cultural globalization. It refers to the growth of cross-cultural contacts where people on the world get a better understanding and appreciation of cultural diversity and plurality. And lastly is the globalism. Globalism refers to the universal internationalist impulse that the world is connected, refers to the connection among cultures, nations, and peoples. It embodies cultural diffusion, the desire to consume and enjoy foreign products and ideas, adopt new technologies and practices, and participate in world culture. So next is the implication of global information society to education. So first, it demands for widening the education access for all. So, yun, mas malawak yung information na nakukuha. And second is the lifelong learning. Third is a global versus local cultural developments. Fourth is the creations of new educational network. For example, is the global virtual universities, virtual schools, multinational education consortiums. And fifth is the changing of educational management from hierarchical institution to equal distributions of network organization from commanding to negotiating. So, and lastly, number 6 is the demand for more flexible and general skills. For example, is the meta skills like problem solving, searching information, and learning skills. So, for the core values of global education, first is the peace and non-violence, of course. Also, the social justice and human rights. We also have the economic well-being and equity. Also, the cultural integrity, ecological balance, and last is democratic participation. So, for core skills and competencies of global education, self-worth and self-affirmation. You have the affirmation of others, including cultural and racial differences. The critical thinking, effective communication skills, including active listening, nonviolent conflict resolution and mediation, also the imagination, the ability to evaluate alternatives, and last is the effective organizing. So next is the globalization and its impact on education. So the impact of globalization and the manner in which the system should respond to the needs of globalization would require to be studied under two broad heads. First is the needed reform within the educational system, like content, equity, and excellence. And the second is the fallout of globalization. It will entail determining the strategies relating to the impending internationalization of education, finance-related issues, and privatization of secondary and higher education. So, from the needed reforms in education, first is the content of education. A is the curriculum upgradation. So, advances in information technology have revolutionized, among other, the content of knowledge and process of educational transaction. It is the information processing technologies provide efficient framework for the storage, management, analysis, and application of the information. So next is the productivity orientation. So the basic objective of globalization is to enhance productivity and to make the educational system an instrument in preparing students who can compete in this world markets as productive members of society. So globalization helps the students to be more globally competitive. So next is the fallout of globalization. So letter A is the internationalization of education. Implicit in the system of globalization is the inevitability of internationalization of educational system, particularly at the higher education stage. It's assumed that education will improve, it is internationalized, and healthy competition will take place. It will provide global opportunities, promote goodwill, and will encourage exchange of scholars. So letter B is the finance-related issues. In order to be part of global configuration, the requirement of funds for social services, including education, will increase manifold. So for this purpose, it is necessary to augment government funding for education. Okay, next is the ASEAN integration. So the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or the ASEAN. So here is the member countries: Brunei Darussalam, the Kingdom of Cambodia, the Republic of Indonesia, the People's Democratic Republic, Malaysia, the Union of Myanmar, the Republic of the Philippines, the Republic of Singapore, the Kingdom of Thailand, and the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. So ASEAN was created as an organization in 1967 with the aim of helping to bring about the Southeast Asian region of peace, freedom, and prosperity for their peoples. So next is the aims and purposes of this. So first is the to accelerate the economic growth, social progress, and cultural development in the region through joint endeavors in the spirit of equality and partnership in order to strengthen the foundation for the prosperous and peaceful community of the Southeast Asian nations. Second is to promote regional peace and stability through abiding respect for justice and the rule of law in the relationship among countries of the region and the adherence to the Philippines of the United Nations. Third is to promote active collaboration and mutual assistance on matters of common interest in the economic, social, cultural, technical, scientific, and administrative fields. Fourth is to provide assistance to each other in the form of training and research facilities in the educational process, professional, technical, and administrative spheres. So next is the ASEAN fundamental principle that contained in the 1976 Treaty of Amity and Cooperation. So first is the mutual respect for the independence, sovereignty, equality, territorial integrity, and the national identity of all nations. Second is the right of every state to lead its national existence free from external interference, subversion, and coercion. So third is the non-interference in the internal affairs of one another. And fourth is the settlement of differences by peaceful manner. Five is the renunciation of the threat of use of force. And six is the effective cooperation among themselves. And last is the ASEAN historical events. Okay, next is the pillars of ASEAN community. So the ASEAN heads of states indicate that the member of states knowledge and an integrated, stable, knowledgeable, and caring community will help ASEAN nation to strengthen their economic competitiveness and attractiveness in investors, in particular during economic downturn. So the first pillar is the ASEAN political security community, aim to ensure the countries in the region live in peace, with one another and with the world in the just, democratic, and harmonious environment. Second is the ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, which aims to contribute to realizing an ASEAN community that is people-oriented and socially responsible with view to achieving enduring solidarity and unity among the peoples of member states of Asia. Lastly is the ASEAN Economic Community, which is a single market and production base, a highly competitive economic region, a region of equitable economic development, and a region fully integrated into the global economy. So, that's all for today's discussion. So, I hope po na sana may natutunan kayo sa aming report ni Ms. Dimple Jose. So, keep safe and God bless us all po. Bye-bye!